reading Exodus and I'm trying to figure out how God went from the God he is in Exodus, where every sacrifice has so many details and like, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, to the New Testament God that everybody preaches about, which is, just grace and like, there's just one simple thing you have to do. I'm just like, I don't know. Did God change his mind? What changed? I don't know. Or did God, I don't know. Also, I'm like super I don't even know what to think about that God liked the aroma of the sacrifices and stuff like that. Like, I can't even wrap my head around that. I don't understand. I don't get that part at all.
Well, the simple answer would be different writers at different times, different cultures at different times. But the cultures are not too much difference between the Old Testament God and the New Testament God at the time frame of the different writings. There is about a 500 to 600 years, 700-year time difference between the writings of the Old Testament and the writings of the New Testament. You see, the writings of the Old Testament were written in around 500 BCE. And writings of the Old Testament, 500 BCE. The writings of the New Testament, no later than about 200 to 160 CE. So you have about a 500 to 700-year time frame of difference of writers and culture and things of that nature. But yet the writers and cultures during that time frame didn't diverge too drastically from one another. You will find that the Roman gods and the Greek gods and all the other Mesopotamian gods are still relatively the same type of narcissistic, egotistical gods who desire to be worshipped and demand that you follow commandments and worship them in certain ways and so on and so forth. And that was still the theme in 1st and 2nd century CE. So when you ask what is the difference, there's two major things as to what changed this God. Two major things. And it's not going to be what you want to hear in the second one. The first one, you'll probably understand, and many people will be drawn to this because hundreds of thousands of people were drawn to this in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century. And that is the idea of Gnosticism. Within Gnosticism, it was believed that this Jesus character was teaching something that harkened back to antiquity as far as an alchemical hermetic mindset, but yet it was going against the God of the Old Testament. You see, in Gnosticism, the Old Testament God is an evil demiurge, Yaldabaoth, an evil God who created purely out of ego the matter form universe. That the Plomora initially created Sophia, and the Plomora then created Yaldabaoth, and Yaldabaoth was supposed to, with Sophia, create the matter universe. But he didn't. He did it out of pure ego. And in doing so, he wanted to trap all the souls that emanated out of the Plomora into this matter form universe. And it is through knowledge. And that is what they believe the Jesus character was teaching, that through knowledge and understanding and wisdom, that you then will be able to leave this matter form creation and return back to the Plomora. But yet there are problems within that. Problems such as the Jesus character saying that he come not to take one tittle from the Old Testament, that you are still supposed to keep the law, and that he is only here to fulfill that law. It is the problem of the parable with the rich young ruler, where the rich young ruler, he asked him, did you follow all the commandments? He said, yes. That was fine by Jesus. But his heart wasn't into it. His emotions wasn't into it. So when he asked him to sell all his stuff and give it to the poor and follow me, he couldn't do it. He went away sad. Disciples then were like, if he can't make it in, how can we? Because wealth was a measure of your righteousness. But so the Jesus character still needed you to fulfill all the commandments, but yet you need to do it with a glad heart. It's basically the message. That's the message with the giving, with the woman who gave 2 pence compared to the ones who sound the trumpets. It's the same message. Give, follow the commandments, but do it out of love with an open heart. That flies in the face of the Gnostic idea, because the Jesus should have been totally against the Old Testament God. So then that brings us to the second reason why this God is different. And that is the fact that the New Testament was originally written, the first ideas of it. The writings of Paul and others come later, but the original writings of it was for people, was for them to, the Romans desired to change the Jewish religion to a more passive religion. You see, the Roman government had been having problems with the Jewish people throughout the Roman Empire because they were revolting constantly. They would not worship Caesar. They tried to give them a temple tax so that they didn't have to worship Caesar on a given day, but they still were in revolt because they were looking for a Messiah who would overthrow the Roman government. They were looking for someone who would do like the Maccabees did against the Greeks and set up their own city state within the Greek Empire to try to overthrow them. You see, the Judaic message is that a Messiah will come and establish a earthly kingdom with on earth now, not some heavenly kingdom, not some ethereal kingdom, but come and establish a kingdom through warfare, a commander who would topple the Roman Empire. That is what they were looking for. And this was causing Nero all types of problems. So he called in his general Vespasian, and Vespasian came with his son Titus. And once they got Josephus ben Matthias as their scribe and started to understand the Jewish story, Vespasian, when he went off to Egypt and then to Rome, commissioned Josephus to change the narrative, to write a new story, create a story where the Jewish people become passive, believing that their Messiah has already come. The story wasn't meant for Gentiles. The story was meant for the Jewish people to stop revolting against the Roman Empire. And yet they still revolted. Even in the first and second century, they still were revolting in Alexandria. They were still revolting in Judea. And this was a problem. And so they wrote this story. But like most things that the government tries to control people, it gets out of hand. The Gentiles picked it up. And then the Gentiles start fighting each other over who's right, who's following Jesus right, who's doing it the right way. Is it the Gnostics? Is it the Marcions? Is it the Valentinians? Is it all these other denominations? Should we be following Thomas, or should we be following Peter, or should we follow Paul? Who should we follow? Should we follow James the Just? Who should we follow? I mean, James was Jesus' brother. We should follow him. You had so much infighting just among the Christians, and the Christians fighting the Jews, and them all fighting the Romans, that it got to a point that when Constantine reconstituted the Roman Empire in 313, he first tried to make Christianity legal in 318 at the Edict of Milan. And then when that didn't work, he organized Christianity under Roman authority in 325 at the Council of Nicaea. And then a few decades later, Emperor Theodosius forces Christianity on the whole of the Roman Empire, which entail wind up forcing Christianity on all of Europe, on all of America and North America, South America, and so many other people around the world. This religion then was forced. The reason why you have two different gods is because the Romans needed to make a God that they could control the people. And that's why he's different. And the smell of that sweet aroma, well, that's something that comes from the fact that the Jewish God, Yahweh, is a Canaanite God who used to be a Sumerian God. And those gods, they like their barbecue. They like their sacrifice. In the, in the story of Utnapishtim, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they're downplayed, talked about that they're greedy little children coming for the barbecue at a sacrifice. So that's where all that comes from. But y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.